guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about two firearms that are really competing against each other for your dollars. First, we have the brand new Bren 2 MS carbine. This is a 5.56 rifle based on the pistol, which has been a real hot seller, I believe, for Sig USA. It's also available in 7.62 by 39, although I don't know if the rifle versions are available in that caliber just yet. The 5.56s just started shipping. And then the Sig MCX Virtus. Both of these rifles have a price tag of right around $2,000, and they're going to have a lot of the same features. The Sig has been around a bit longer. It was originally known as the MCX. It's evolved into the Virtus, and I'm slowly getting this one all set up the way I like it. But yeah, these two rifles are competing for your dollar, and I'm going to try to tell you which one I like better. If I could only pick one, which would it be? And going into this video, I honestly don't know the answer to that question just yet. When we first started, I thought it was going to be the Sig. We've been shooting this rifle earlier today, and it's kind of muddied that opinion. So let's see where we end up at the end of the video. In case you guys are wondering why I'm shooting from the bench so much, because I do read the comments, it's because my right rotator cuff is destroyed, and I'm working through that. So my right arm is kind of not all there right now. So anyway, shooting from the bench is a little bit easier for me right now. Taking a look at the MCX, let's talk about what I like about the gun. One of the things right off the bat, you're going to find that if you need spare parts for your Sig, it's a phone call away. You can call up Sig USA and they'll have the part that you need most likely for your current firearm. Now, if you have older versions of their guns, that might not always be the case, but we're not talking about the older versions. We're talking about the latest and greatest, and that's exactly what the Virtus is. So if you need a part, you can get that spare part. If you break it, tinkering around, whatever. The other thing I like about the Sig is the familiar controls. Let's face it, the AR-15 is America's rifle, and we've become accustomed to those ergonomics and the controls and that type of a feel to a rifle. And so when another rifle comes along that shares that common ergonomic feel, I'm going to gravitate towards it. With the MCX, we have the ability to put a standard AR-15 grip on here, and we can pick whichever one, you know, flops or mop, right? This one is a Sig grip, and it's very much has the same feel as maybe a Magpul style pistol grip. The other thing is that you have a nice large handguard up here. It's not too small. For a while there, it seemed like a lot of companies were getting the handguards and the rail systems too small, especially for my big hands. This thing fits me very, very good. So I like the ergonomics. I like where the selector lever is. It's right where an AR-15 would be. It does have the ambi controls. That mag release is right there where, again, it's familiar to me. There's my port cover to keep the crud out, which is kind of funny given the whole front of the rifle's open. We'll talk about that in a moment. Standard AR-15 magazines. And again, we have familiar controls over here, except we have the extension on the bolt release. The one thing I don't like is we have the T-handle, the one universally hated feature of the AR-15 in my opinion. It's been carried over to the Virtus. Perhaps some sort of a side charging system would have been better, but it would have changed the entire dynamic of the gun. And of course we have the ambi magazine release if you want to beer can magazines out of the gun versus just letting gravity do its work. So this rifle in general just fits me very nicely. You have right out of the box the adjustable length of pull. There we go. Folding stock that folds to the left-hand side of the receiver. To deploy it, it's spring tension that holds it closed, and then to deploy it, you just flip it open, and then you have a button right here that you can depress to set that length of pull to whatever you want it to be. On the rear, another positive is you have a 1913 pick rail, and there are different stock options available for your rifle. You don't have to rock this Sig Virtus style gun or stock. Now on the Virtus, you have QD mounts back here on the end of the receiver. You have them on both sides back here on the stock. And then you have the mounts up front, which you're not going to find on the CZ that are built into the handguard. So you're not going to have to buy an accessory to get a forward mounting point for a sling. Shooting this gun is very nice. I mean, it shoots really, really good. It has an easy to use gas system up here. You have basically plus, and it's marked on the receiver, plus and minus. Minus is less gas, plus is more gas. And this gun, right out of the box, is designed to be suppressed. And you know that because it has the proprietary taper cut to the end to use a Sig suppressor. If you don't want to use a Sig suppressor, in the box comes the ring that you can put on the end of the barrel that will give it a right edge, so you can mount any type of muzzle device for another suppressor type if you don't want to run something that's manufactured by Sig. The gun does not come with iron sights. I don't know what the trend is here. Companies seem to be getting away with charging $2,000 for guns and not throwing in backup sights or iron sights, which I don't like that trend, but I have put Griffin armament sights on the gun. They're very minimalistic, they're metal, and I just love the way they work. It's just a spring detent that holds them in the deployed position and in the folded position. The rear is adjustable for windage, and the front is adjustable for elevation or windage. Nice sights, but they don't come with the Sig. I could put them on the Bren as well. So yeah, very, very easy to use gun. If you're going to pick up this rifle and you're used to using the AR-15, this is going to become a very easy transition for you to make, especially with the T-handle. There are other T-handles on the market that are even larger, but it comes with an ambi charging handle. The recoil impulse in this thing with the gas system set to its minimal setting is actually really, really nice. It's a good shooting little rifle. That's the 150 meter target. Let's walk her out to 200 meters. All right, so hit every time. It's a nice shooting rifle. It's like a laser beam. We're just shooting some 55 grain Federal 223, and it works really, really nicely. Now, one of the things I don't like about the gun is, even though it's set up for suppressor use, you're going to find it has the same flaws the AR-15 does. It hinges open just like an AR-15. You're going to see oil kind of weeping out around this area where it connects the upper and lower. When you put a can on there with a traditional baffle system in it, not an OSS, you're going to get a lot of gas pressure coming back down that barrel. It'll go into the receiver. It's going to vent right here by the shooter's face. I know that from suppressing my MCX, the original version. When running this thing with a regular can on it, not something that's low back pressure like OSS, you get gassed out very, very quickly as you shoot the rifle. Definitely a downside, but I do like the fact that it's easily suppressible. We would like to thank our friends over at Big Daddy Unlimited for making this video possible. Without their help, we couldn't bring you content like this. If you want to do us a solid, swing by BigDaddyUnlimited.com and become a member for a trial membership of just 99 cents. Just check it out. They're like the Sam's Club of the online retail sales. Check them out, and you can find some really sweet deals. If you want to stay a member, over on militaryarms.org, there's a link for 20% off, and you can stay a member of Big Daddy Unlimited. So again, we want to thank them for helping to support us so we can bring you content like this. So next up, let's talk about the Bren 2. The Bren 2 is something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I've been wanting to SBR one of my, shoulder. I've been wanting to SBR one of my pistols, and I haven't gotten around to it, but I will here soon, because I really think the pistol is more in line with what I want. Now keep in mind, the longest barrel that CZ manufactures for any military police out there I'm aware of is a 14-inch barrel, and they'll come with a bayonet lug. And then we have an 11-inch barrel, which this one is, then you have an 8-inch barrel version. The 11 to 14-inch, I think the 11-inch, this one right here, is my favorite barrel length. And it just looks really nice up front. Whereas, as we talked about in the review video of this, everything out here just looks like an afterthought. It has a very heavy profile barrel, has that really bad muzzle device on it. I mean, it's effective, it's just ugly as sin. And yeah, so you have M-LOK all the way out. Back here, let's talk about the stock. The stock is a very functional stock. It is a folding stock on the rifle, and it latches right over. You see this little hook on the bottom side of the ejection port that's going to hook right over the edge, and it's going to hold it in place so it won't flop open. So just kind of pull down and pull over to deploy the stock. To adjust the length of pull, you just grab the rear end of the stock, and you can pick a spot there that works for you. 2 clicks out is what I like. The ergonomics of the pistol grip, in my opinion, this is a really narrow, especially up here at the top, a very narrow pistol grip, and it's a bit awkward for me. I tend to shoot it with low gripping it like this, where this palm swell is, because this distance right here is really short. On the Sig, it's longer and it feels more like an AR-15. With this short grip and where this trigger breaks, I just find that it's more comfortable for me and ergonomic to kind of low grip it. So the pistol grip, which is non-replaceable, you can change the back straps on it, but it still really doesn't change this dimension much. It's definitely not to my liking. It's just okay, has a good feel to it. It's definitely easy to shoot because it has like a 3-pound, 12-ounce trigger in it. But yeah, so on top we have an aluminum receiver, which is the same with the Sig Virtus. We have M-LOK out here. Now with the Sig Virtus, we have a pick rail on top, and then at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position, we have M-LOK sections. On the Bren 2, we have an extra set of M-LOK ports or slots up here on the top. They're at a slight angle, so you can see I put a light on there, and it puts it at a slight angle. With the Sig, it's a more square handguard, and you can't run a 45-degree offset because the way it bulges around where the 1913 rail section is and where the M-LOK is. So this actually gives you a way to put an offset light, or you could even do something that was offset off the 1913 rail up here because you don't have it bulging like you would on the Virtus. So we have the monolithic rail. It's not monolithic because it actually breaks right here, but just like the Sig Virtus, this fits very, very tightly. It's bolted to the receiver so it doesn't move, and you can put force multipliers out there like night vision and things like that. The controls on it, the mag release is just like where it would be on an AR-15 M16. You have the selector lever fairly close, but in the fire position, the reason it's so small is because it's right there. If you deep grip it, I usually grip a little bit lower, but if you deep grip it, that's going to be right there on the knuckle, kind of like with the Scorpion. The other thing I really like about this gun is I can charge it by simply pulling the charging handle to the rear. I can also reverse this, put it from this side over to this side very easily during field stripping. I just pull this out, and when I put it back together, I put it in on this side. But I like that side charging versus the T-handle on the Sig. You'll also notice that while we haven't been able to successfully suppress this just yet, and we don't know if that voids the warranty on the gun because the owner's manual says if you overgas it, it can cause premature wear of the internals. If I put an OSS can on here, that's about the only way I would really want to suppress it, based upon what we've read in the manual, in that we don't think that the gas plug is set up for suppression. It doesn't talk about it, but we kind of touched upon that in the review video. But if we were able to suppress it, you wouldn't have the same problem with gas seeping into the shooter's face from the gas coming back down the barrel, because it doesn't have a break point right here like the AR-15 or Virtus does. So in theory, this would make a better suppressor host, but I can't really say until I successfully suppress this. And that'll come at a later date. The charging handle I can pull back to the rear and just push down and lock the bolt open. With the Sig, I have to do the AR-15 type of, put it on your knee and pull it back, then hit the ping pong paddle, lock it open. This can easily be done with one hand. You don't have to do it that way either. You can just use it, push up on the bolt release inside the trigger guard, pull it to the rear, and lock it open. So that is a definite ergonomic improvement over the Virtus. And that's about it. Both guns have ambi controls for the mag release. You have the ability to drop the bolt here from ambi position, which you don't have on the Virtus. So it seems like this one would be a little bit more left-hand friendly. The stock on this isn't, there are Dan Haga adapters out there for ACR stocks and things like that, but it's kind of a weird, it's not, the way it mounts is less than ideal. Let's just put it that way. The factory stock definitely works better. So to this point, there really is no reason to replace the factory stock that comes on this gun, but there are versions of ACR adapters and stuff out there if you want to swap it out. It doesn't have a pick rail back here, which I think the Virtus definitely has the advantage there for different types of stocks if you don't want to use the factory stock. All right, so let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. Just like the Virtus, we have a 2-position gas, well, not just like the Virtus, it has a 3-position gas system, but one of the positions is just off. It turns the gun off, and that's silly. I don't know why you'd ever want to use that, but you have 2 usable ports. You have a high setting and a low setting, and when it ships from the factory, it's going to have more gas going to the system. And as we talked about in the review video, I run this in the 2nd position, which is a little bit less gas, and it seems to run pretty good. So let's do a little bit of shooting with this, where I have a Comp M5 on the Sig. I have just a regular patrol optic here on the Bren 2. In terms of recoil impulse, this thing is really, really smooth, but so is the Virtus. I can't say that one shoots more softly than the other, and they both shoot very good. I just prefer the ergonomics of the pistol grip of the Virtus more than I prefer the pistol grip on the Bren 2. In terms of the way they balance, very similar. You'd think because of the heavier profile barrel used on the Bren 2 that it would be nose heavy. It doesn't really feel to be all that nose heavy. It's a very shootable rifle. The Bren is a very handy feeling rifle. It shoulders very naturally. It comes up quickly onto target, and despite the heavy profile barrel, it doesn't feel any more muzzle heavy than the Virtus. Let's go ahead and load it up and do some shooting with it here. So, very flat shooting. The muzzle brake does help. It really keeps this gun recoiling straight into my shoulder, and it's a little bit more controllable than the Sig, I think, but again, that's because the Sig has a flash suppressor and this has a muzzle brake on it. The Sig is a very light, handy rifle as well. It balances nicely, and it comes up quickly to the shoulder. It feels kind of spindly back here, and it looks kind of spindly. I would think if you were running and dropping and rolling and all that stuff and using the butt of the gun to break your fall, it feels like it wouldn't hold up to that type of use, but I don't know. I don't have no reason to use it that way. But it makes for a very nimble feeling rifle. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of shooting with it. So this isn't easy to control. Again, we have a flash suppressor versus a muzzle brake, but in overall handling, it feels really, really good. I can't really say if I prefer this over the Bren or not. The Bren, I think, shoulders a little bit more naturally for me, perhaps, but this thing isn't that far off. Taking a look at the two gas systems on the rifle, they're both short stroke gas piston rifles, but there's a pretty big design difference between the two. On the Sig, it's a very simple system. You have a plug and a piston, and that's it. You also have a very simple two-position gas setting, and it's clearly marked on the receiver, plus and minus. Minus less gas, plus more gas. And so it's, again, very, very simple to use. On the Bren, it's a slightly more complex gas system. Internally, you have four pieces. You have the piston arm itself, a spring on the piston, then you have a connecting puck, and then you have the plug itself. So there's four pieces versus two in the gas system. You also, instead of having a two-position gas selector, you have a three-position gas selector. 1, 2, and then off. That turns your gas completely off for some reason. Now, what we've also discovered in reading the owner's manual is we don't have a description of what this gas system was designed to do. On the pistol, the owner's manual clearly says that on Position 1, that's standard for everyday use. Position 2 opens up the gas port and gives it more gas, and that's used expressly for adverse conditions, and it's not to be used in as a standard setting because it can cause damage to the gun. And then it also had the third or off position. This one is different in that the first position, the gas port is fully gassed. The second position, it reduces the gas. It's a smaller gas port. And then the third position, again, is completely off. So we don't know if that second position is for a suppressor. It's not stated in the owner's manual. Matter of fact, the operation of the gas system on the rifle itself is not clearly explained in the owner's manual. So we don't know. The gas system on this is simpler. This is a bit more complex, but in the end, it doesn't really mean much because they both seem to be fairly reliable rifles. The other thing I've noticed, I'm not going to bore you with a complete takedown of both rifles. They each have their own videos out there if you want to learn how to disassemble them. But it's interesting in that when you take this gun apart, the Virtus, when you look down, the entire front of the gun is completely open. There's nothing blocking it in the front. The only thing blocking it when it's assembled is the 2 recoil springs and the gas piston itself. When it goes back, the whole entire front of the gun is open to the elements. On the Bren, we can see some light kind of around the front trunnion, but it's so minimal. It's almost sealed in the front. On the Virtus, it's literally wide open. So it'd be interesting to see how this would fare in one of our gauntlet tests. Now, if you go way back in time to my MCX video, I was throwing my MCX in the mud and it seemed to do fairly well, and it's designed the exact same way with the whole front end of the gun basically wide open to the elements. So I can't really say definitively which one is better. I typically side with fewer parts is better, and I would go with that in this. The Sig system is definitely very, very simple, but the Bren is more sealed up in the front, and without torture testing them, I can't say which one is, absolutely better than the other one. I just don't know. So what I think it's going to boil down to, guys, is just personal preference. Each have their positives and negatives. It's really, really difficult to decide. You do have other manufacturers for rail systems. Lancer makes a lightweight a carbon fiber handguard for this gun already. I'm sure other things will come out for the Bren because the Bren's popular. There's a little bit of aftermarket support for this. There's a little bit of aftermarket support for the Sig. So again, it's totally personal preference. Every once in a while, I think in this evaluation that I definitely like this about the Bren, therefore it's the Bren. Then I come back and I shoot the Sig and I'm like, there's something about the Sig I like. So it's also worth noting that with CZ products, I have a very good history in terms of getting guns that work. I've not had any problems with my Scorpions, and yes, I know there's people out there that have had problems with the Scorpions going off out of battery. I've never had that issue. My P10Cs have always been really good performing guns. My CZ75s, I love them. I'm carrying one right now, my P01. I've had a very good history with CZ in terms of not getting lemons. I wish I could say the same for Sig. When I posted my Virtus video, I read the comments, as I typically do, and I had people saying that their gun was, inaccurate, it couldn't be zeroed, it had all sorts of problems, and Sig was unhelpful, whatnot, and then other people that agreed with me that their gun ran just fine. The MPX, we had an MPX-K, Jason had one, and we shot a video with it, put a suppressor on it, couldn't hit a man-sized target at 25 yards with a suppressor on it. Put the muzzle device back on it goes back to shooting normal-sized groups. Well, he got a second one in trade recently, put a suppressor on it, and it works just fine. With Sig, it seems to be a roll of the dice if you're going to get a quality product or not. In my case, this gun works great. In my case, my Rattler functions flawlessly, and I love this MCX. So if I had to pick between the two right now, I'm going to go with the Virtus. I like the Virtus more. And we're talking that much, and it may change tomorrow. I can't really say that it's an ergonomic issue. I can't really say it's any one thing. You would think that it would put me off that the whole front of the gun is open to the elements, but I've already thrown my MCX in the mud and it did pretty well. I've never had a problem with my MCX, and I haven't had any problems with this Virtus. I love the Bren. I really, really do, but maybe it's just me not being able to get over the ugliness of the front end of the gun. I don't know. But I think if I had to give one up, I think it'd be the Bren too. And that kind of surprises even me. Yeah. If I wanted to reduce the recoil impulse, I could put a muzzle brake on it. It's suppressor friendly, even though it would gas me out if I used a Sig suppressor on it. I could put an OSS on here. I don't have to cut stuff off the barrel. I think I'm pretty confident in my decision that if I had to pick one, it would definitely be the Virtus. All right, guys. I can't wait to read your comments. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. There's a link down below. Click that link and consider becoming part of our Patreon family. Also, you have the option of hitting the join button right here on YouTube. Underneath the video player, there's a join button. Give it a click, check out some of the perks, and consider becoming part of our YouTube family right here on YouTube. And last but not least, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Guys, thanks for 12 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.